Washington, D.C., a press-packed auditorium, bright lights overhead. Karoline Leavitt stepped up to the podium like she belonged there. No script, no teleprompter, just fire behind her eyes and a confidence that silenced the murmuring crowd. She adjusted the microphone and cleared her throat. "This administration," she began, "has confused charm with courage, influence with impact, and visibility with leadership." She paused, just enough time for the cameras to zoom in. "We don't need another book club appearance. We don't need another warm and fuzzy speech from the East Wing about feelings. We need decisions. We need action. We need leadership." The name wasn't spoken yet, but everyone knew who she meant. Back at the White House, Jill Biden sat in her private office watching the broadcast. The television volume was muted, but she could read Karoline's lips, and see the raw challenge in her expression. "She's baiting you," one of her aides whispered. Jill didn't flinch. "Then maybe it's time someone bites back." Less than an hour later, the First Lady's official X account posted a quote card with her smiling at a school library. "Real leadership lifts people up. It doesn't tear others down." The digital war had begun. Within minutes, the internet caught fire. Hashtags like #SoftPowerClash, #Leavitt vs. Biden, and #NotMyFirstLady trended side by side. On talk radio, Karoline's comments were hailed as bold truth or reckless showboating, depending on the caller. At the same time, Jill's defenders called her a symbol of dignity in a time of chaos. But Karoline wasn't finished. She never intended to spark a moment. She was building a movement. That night on Fox Primetime, she doubled down. If Dr. Biden wants to step into politics, then she better be ready for the consequences. You don't get to shape policy from the shadows and expect immunity from critique. And just like that, what started as a soundbite turned into a national showdown. The White House's East Wing was not built for political warfare, but tonight, it felt like a war room. Jill Biden stood by the window, arms crossed, phone in hand. Her usual calm demeanor was starting to crack. The press was calling, pundits were raging, and Democratic strategists were panicking. "She's gaining traction," murmured one advisor. "Especially with young voters." Jill turned slowly. "You mean young conservatives?" The aide hesitated. "Actually, it's broader than that." Across town, Karoline Leavitt walked off set at Fox News with a smile like a blade. Her team swarmed her, tweets to approve, interviews to schedule, talking points to sharpen. The energy around her was volcanic. "She just posted," her communications director said, handing her a phone. Karoline looked down at Jill Biden's Instagram reel. Soft piano music, children laughing, inspirational quotes over filtered footage of her reading to school kids. The caption read, "We lead with kindness. We lead by example." Karoline scoffed. "How original." Then she turned to the camera crew. "Line up a response." "I'm not done." Within an hour, Karoline's counterpunch landed like a thunderclap on X. "Leadership isn't reading to toddlers while your husband signs executive orders behind closed doors. If you want to play politics, come debate me. Publicly. No scripts. No PR fluff." It was more than a jab, it was a dare. The internet exploded. Commentators on both sides dissected every word. Conservative voices called it the mic drop of the year, while liberal outlets accused Karoline of disrespecting the First Lady's historic role. But beneath the media noise, something deeper stirred, a generational clash, not just of policies, but of tone, purpose, and gendered expectations. And Jill? She didn't blink. The next morning, she walked into a scheduled education summit in Baltimore and opened her remarks with unexpected fire. "I've been underestimated before. But make no mistake, I don't need a podium war to prove my worth." The message was clear, she wasn't retreating, she was advancing. 2 women, 1 nation. No room for both to lead the conversation. The media couldn't get enough. Every major outlet, from CNN to Breitbart, ran with the story, each twisting the moment to suit its narrative. Morning shows dubbed it the Battle of the First Ladies, one actual, one aspirational. But behind the headlines, both camps were bracing for escalation. In Wilmington, Delaware, Jill Biden sat with her senior advisor, Marla Hayes, inside a cozy but secure residence room. The blinds were drawn, but the tension seeped in like fog. "She called you a PR prop," Marla said softly. Jill's jaw tightened. "And I've been called worse. She's baiting you. Don't let her pull you into a cage match." Jill gave a thin smile. "What makes you think I don't know how to fight?" Meanwhile, in D.C., Karoline was prepping for her podcast taping. Her voice coach and political strategist stood nearby, watching her rehearse. There was no teleprompter, just her instinct and fire. "I'm not attacking a woman," Karoline said, pausing midline. "I'm confronting someone who thinks photo ops equal power." Her producer chimed in, "That line right there, highlight it. That's your knockout." She nodded, then turned to camera. "Let's roll." The episode dropped within hours. Its title? "Kindness isn't leadership, it's a mask." It charted within minutes. In the episode, Karoline didn't hold back. She questioned why Jill Biden, an unelected public figure, had such a prominent voice in policy optics. She challenged the notion that empathy alone could lead a country facing global threats and internal chaos. Social media fractured instantly. Gen Z influencers debated the role of soft power. Boomer pundits called it disrespect wrapped in ambition. Moms on Facebook posted side-by-side photos. Jill hugging children, Karoline giving a fiery town hall speech, with captions asking, "Which woman speaks for you?" But amid the noise, a sharper, more uncomfortable question emerged. Was America finally seeing the beginning of a new political archetype? Not a first lady of tradition, and not a rising star playing nice. Two forces, one wielding legacy, the other disruption. And neither was backing down. The White House press room buzzed with anticipation. Rumors had already spread that Jill Biden was preparing a public response, not just through a spokesperson, but live, in front of the cameras. Something she rarely did. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt had just landed in New York for a planned town hall with conservative college students at NYU. The crowd was rowdy, energetic, and unapologetically supportive. "She's scared," Karoline said backstage to her comms director, glancing at the stream of tweets flashing across her phone. "They don't know how to respond to truth without calling it an attack." Back in D.C., Jill's team scrambled to finalize the optics of the briefing. What would she wear? How strong could she sound without seeming combative? Could she project dignity without surrendering ground? "Be graceful," Marla told her, "but not fragile." Jill took a deep breath as she stepped onto the stage. The room fell silent. Dozens of reporters raised their recorders. The moment felt more like a State of the Union than a simple address. "I've spent decades in classrooms, not campaign trails," she began, her voice even. "But I will say this, leadership comes in many forms. And sometimes, it wears compassion like armor." The message was subtle but pointed. But Karoline, watching from backstage in New York, had already written her reply. On a yellow notepad with red ink, she scribbled 3 words. "Armor doesn't win wars." Her town hall began. Lights. Applause. She walked out with the confidence of someone who knew the crowd was already with her. "Tonight," she opened, "we're not here to talk about feelings, we're here to talk about facts. And the fact is, America isn't failing because of too much strength, it's failing because too many people in charge are afraid to use it." A roar erupted. Back in D.C., Jill's team replayed the live stream. Someone whispered, "She's building a base." Another murmured, "No, she's building a revolution." And this revolution had just found its lightning rod. The morning after Karoline's fiery town hall, every major news outlet had something to say. CNN called it reckless populism. Fox News hailed it as the birth of a new generation. The View debated her tone, her age, and of course, her lack of experience. But it wasn't just pundits who reacted. The First Lady's office released a follow-up statement, attempting to clarify Jill's comments. Biden respects all voices in the democratic process, the statement read, but public servants must lead with responsibility, not rage. Karoline saw it, and laughed. I'm not leading with rage, she told her press secretary. I'm leading with memory. I remember what real leadership looked like. By noon, the White House attempted to take control of the narrative. Jill Biden appeared on a daytime interview to reinforce her message. I believe in firm leadership, she said, but firmness doesn't mean shouting. It means showing up with compassion every day, even when you're not being cheered. Backstage at her next event, Karoline prepared for a scheduled appearance on a popular podcast known for its brutally unfiltered political commentary. Let me guess, the host opened, you're being painted as the next Sarah Palin? Karoline smirked. I don't carry lipstick, I carry facts. And if Jill Biden wants to call me angry, maybe it's because I'm the only one who's not asleep at the wheel. The episode went viral overnight. Clips flooded TikTok, where Gen Z conservatives began remixing her soundbites with flashing texts. We need strength, not sympathy. Leadership doesn't hug, it stands. On the Hill, a few senior Democrats grew nervous. If she keeps this up, one aide whispered, she might just become the GOP's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But Karoline didn't care about labels. She had another event that night, and this one would be bigger. Because someone unexpected had just RSVP'd. Jill Biden. Karoline Leavitt sat at her desk, the blue folders of briefing notes untouched in front of her. The sunlight sliced through the blinds in sharp beams, illuminating the dust in the air like floating evidence. She wasn't reading, she was rehearsing. Tonight wasn't just another speech, it was her most watched appearance since the confrontation with Jill Biden went viral. Her press secretary leaned in. They moved Jill's interview to 7 p.m. prime slot. She's responding to you directly. Karoline smirked. Good, let them tune in. Meanwhile, across town at the Kennedy Center, Jill Biden adjusted her blazer in the mirror backstage. A makeup artist powdered her cheekbones while an aide reviewed the talking points. They had softened her language, toned down the heat, but she was determined to keep one line untouched. Public service is about lifting others, not tearing them down to rise. The curtain call was minutes away. As Karoline's team prepped the lighting for her remote studio appearance, her phone buzzed. A text from her father, "Proud of you, don't blink." That one line grounded her. She stepped into the studio. Camera red. Live. The host cut right to it. Karoline, Jill Biden says you've politicized compassion. Your response? Without missing a beat. Compassion without courage is just decoration. And we're not here to decorate the truth. The segment lit up social media within seconds. Viewers posted clips comparing Jill's calm delivery to Karoline's firestorm of clarity. But as the interview wrapped, Karoline's team grew quiet. A leak had just hit Twitter. An internal email chain revealing Jill Biden's advisors rehearsing her independent statement days before Karoline's viral moment. The internet exploded. Commentators weren't just discussing the feud anymore. They were questioning the authenticity of the First Lady's entire public image. Karoline's press team looked at her. You're not just in the story anymore, one whispered. You're writing it now. The next morning, every major headline screamed with urgency. Compassion or calculated? Jill Biden's message under fire after leaked emails. Cable news hosts argued back and forth while Karoline Leavitt sipped her coffee at sunrise, watching from her hotel balcony. A faint smile curved on her lips, not from triumph, but from clarity. The playing field was shifting. In the White House, the mood was tense. Jill Biden's communications director was fielding calls non-stop. We control the narrative, she insisted over speakerphone, though her eyes betrayed panic. The leaked emails showed staffers crafting Jill's remarks to appear genuine and unrehearsed. The very essence of authenticity, now under siege. Meanwhile, Karoline received a call from a veteran congressman. "You've done what few could. You exposed the performance without even raising your voice." But Karoline knew better. This wasn't over. This was the middle of the story, the part where the audience leans in. A producer from a late-night show reached out. Would Karoline consider appearing? Her team declined. This wasn't about pop culture optics, it was about leadership. Every move had to be intentional, disciplined. Later that day, she held a press conference on the Capitol steps. No teleprompters. No prepared remarks. Just her voice. The American people are tired of being handled like a brand campaign. They don't want filters. They don't need carefully worded sympathy. What they want is honesty, even when it's inconvenient. Across the plaza, reporters glanced at each other. No notes. No deflection. Just fire. Backstage, Jill Biden watched the clip from a secure room in Delaware. Her advisor shut the laptop with a sigh. "Do we respond?" She didn't answer immediately. She just stared out the window. The lines between public and private, soft power and real influence, were now impossible to ignore. That night, Karoline trended again. But this time, it wasn't about what she said. It was about what she represented. A new kind of political voice, not softened, not curated, not afraid to confront anyone in power, even if her opponent carried the last name Biden. By the next day, Karoline Leavitt wasn't just a trending name, she was a national conversation. News anchors debated her tone. Political strategists dissected her raw clarity. And quietly, inside the West Wing, the tension turned to strategy. Jill Biden's team scrambled to regain footing. They booked her for an exclusive sit-down interview on a legacy network. The goal, reposition her narrative, not as a vulnerable figure under attack, but as a composed, dignified woman above the noise. But Karoline had other plans. As Jill's televised segment aired, Karoline dropped her own response, live. No green rooms. No makeup team. No commercial breaks. Just Karoline, standing before a town hall crowd in Pennsylvania, mic in hand, energy palpable. "I don't attack women. I challenge narratives, especially the ones that insult our intelligence." The audience roared. Her words didn't come from a script. They came from lived frustration, shared by millions who'd felt their voices drowned beneath layers of political politeness and White House choreography. Back at the network, Jill Biden watched her own pre-recorded interview air with polished grace. She spoke of unity, of not lowering herself to petty fights. She smiled. She nodded. She played the game. But America was watching both screens now. And the difference between rehearsed and real was becoming impossible to ignore. Later that evening, a clip surfaced. It showed Jill Biden's aides discussing optic strategy for her appearance. A hot mic, a careless moment. One staffer said, "We just need her to look above it all." Karoline's fighting. Jill's floating. And suddenly, that line, floating, turned viral. Floating while families struggled. Floating while communities asked for leadership. Floating while political storms raged. Karoline capitalized. She posted just 5 words to X. "America's not floating. I'm not either." It hit like a hammer. Cable news cut into segments. Hashtags trended. Influencers, moms, veterans, even college kids, all weighing in. The nation wasn't rallying behind Karoline for her experience. They were rallying because she was saying what they thought, and saying it without flinching. Jill Biden's next move would be critical. But deep inside the First Lady's residence, even she knew it, this wasn't just politics anymore. This was a referendum on authenticity. And Karoline Leavitt had just rewritten the rules. The media frenzy showed no signs of slowing down. Headlines read like boxing posters. Leavitt versus Biden, the battle for the heart of America. In a Washington that had grown numb to carefully crafted speeches, Karoline's words cut like a blade through spin. And for Jill Biden, the fight had reached a new level, one where silence would no longer be seen as grace, but as surrender. That weekend, Jill made a bold move. She requested to join a major primetime debate panel, a first for any sitting First Lady. Her staff warned her, pleaded even, that this wasn't the arena for someone in her role. But Jill had had enough. Enough of being underestimated. Enough of Karoline's name dominating the narrative. The stage was set for a live televised segment hosted from Atlanta, audience packed, tension heavy. Karoline arrived first, dressed in sharp navy, that same cross necklace glinting under the lights. Her team advised her to soften her tone. She ignored them. Jill entered moments later, calm, dressed in cream, her expression unreadable. 2 generations. 2 ideologies. 2 definitions of what leadership looked like. The moderator wasted no time. Mrs. Biden, do you believe Karoline Leavitt represents a threat to the values you've stood for? Jill smiled tightly. I believe she represents a change in tone, not substance. Karoline leaned forward. And I believe tone without truth is theater. The audience gasped. Jill, for the first time, blinked. This wasn't a debate about policy anymore. It was about power, who deserved to speak for America's future. Back and forth they went, education, foreign policy, cultural decay. Jill invoked experience. Karoline invoked pain. Jill referenced unity. Karoline called out hypocrisy. At one point, Jill said, I've walked the halls of the White House for years. To which Karoline snapped, and millions of Americans feel like you never heard them from there. Silence. Even the moderator paused. It wasn't just the words. It was the weight of them. That night, pollsters reported a stunning shift. Independents, especially younger voters and women, leaned in Karoline's favor for the first time. Not because they agreed with her on every issue, but because they believed she wasn't pretending. And in a political culture drowning in artifice, that was everything. The final moment of the debate wasn't spoken. It was felt. Jill exited first, composed. Karoline stayed back, meeting eyes with the audience, her expression unyielding. This wasn't about winning a moment anymore. It was about claiming a movement. The morning after the debate felt like the aftermath of a political earthquake. Cable news hosts scrambled to process what had happened. Clips from the debate went viral, especially the moment Karoline looked directly into the camera and said, "The White House isn't a place to shelter feelings. It's where truth should thunder." In homes across the country, some were stunned. Others were thrilled. But no one was indifferent. Karoline had done something few outsiders could, she made the public feel again. Jill Biden, meanwhile, remained mostly silent. The White House released a single, short statement. The First Lady stands by her message of unity and continues her service to the American people. But the silence didn't quiet the storm. In fact, it fueled it. In the days that followed, Karoline hit the airwaves. She appeared on every major platform, reiterating the same message. If experience means repeating failure, then give me inexperience with courage. Donors noticed. So did voters. Campaign staff across the aisle admitted, the debate wasn't just a viral moment, it was a turning point. And Jill? She returned to her role, more cautious than ever. She had stepped into the ring, and while she didn't fall, she had been outmatched in a game she wasn't trained to play. Backstage, long after the cameras had shut off and the audience had cleared out, Karoline sat with her team in silence. No champagne. No celebration. just resolve. One advisor asked her, "Do you think it was too far?" She looked up, eyes fierce. "No. I think it was finally far enough." A beat passed. Then Karoline stood up, adjusted her blazer, and walked toward the door. This wasn't just a debate. This was a message. The rules have changed. And Karoline Leavitt isn't asking for permission anymore. Thank you for watching this explosive confrontation between Karoline Leavitt and Jill Biden. In a time when polished words often replace real conviction, Karoline made it clear, America is hungry for leadership that doesn't flinch, doesn't apologize, and doesn't sugarcoat the truth. Whether you stand with her or stand against her, one thing is certain, she's not backing down. And neither is the conversation she's forcing us all to have.